Welcome into the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnard, and we are presented by the Grid Network. And I just want to thank you for being here because tomorrow is a very big day on the sports calendar. That is right. It is opening day, baby. The Red Sox are back. It is baseball season. It is that time of year again. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. The leaves are blossoming. And we got baseball back, baby. So we're going to be talking a lot about baseball tonight. We got some discussions on, the roster breakdown, what's going to happen, how is everything going to look. Not to mention a brand new segment that is wrapped in to the Red Sox and kind of what is going on and maybe why certain players made the team and others got sent down. Also, we got the Celtics, Jason Tatum. He's hurt. He took a nasty spill from Domantas Sabonis the other night. He tweaked his ankle, though he got upgraded to questionable tonight. He was supposed to be out, but now he might play. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The Patriots made some big news and helped Drake May, baby. They got Stefon Diggs, and why that, in my opinion, is a very good thing. And finally, the Bruins. I mean, there's really not much more to say about the Bruins except for the fact that they suck and that maybe it wasn't Brad Marchand who was the sole reason why there was so much strife. I don't know. Maybe it was Swayman, because after the other night against LA, you kind of had a prominent defenseman not like the fact that his goalie decided to try to fight the other goalie. I don't know. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, of course, it is Boston Red Sox time. It is the Sox. Fenway is coming back to us very soon. Very excited about that, except for the fact that means we have to spend money and give money to John F. and Henry. Not a fan. But it is opening day tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Red Sox are playing the Rangers, which is going to be a great matchup. We got Garrett Crochet on the mound versus the legendary Red Sox legend himself, Nathan Eovaldi. So it's going to be a really good showdown. And as I mentioned earlier at the start of the show, it's opening day. We got the rosters coming out. We got what the lineup is going to look like and who's going to be playing the position. So as it turns out, we got Connor Wong at catching. We got Alex Bregman, who's going to be taking over at third. Trevor Story's at short. Campbell is at second. And Tristan Cass is at first. Jaron Duran's going to be taking over from left field. He's moving from center to left. Rafaela is now officially going to be playing in center field and hoping that they're going to keep him there for the season. And then Wilyer Abreu, the Gold Glove winning rookie, Wilyer Abreu is going to be playing in right field. Now, I don't mind this. I mean, listen, I think the Red Sox have one of the better rosters in the league. And that's kind of crazy to say because here I am not too long ago absolutely bashing this team and telling you that unless the Red Sox do A, B, and C, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to go far. It's going to be year after year, same thing after same thing. Sam Kennedy spewing the same crap at the end of the year, saying they're going to do something, then they don't, and then it's, all that nonsense, right? Instead, they actually made some moves. They went out, they traded for Garrett Crochet. I got my World Series Chris Sale jersey on as a memento for, getting a left-handed pitcher from Chicago White Sox and bringing him to Boston. So hopefully same thing can happen for Crochet. We also signed again Alex Bregman, as you saw, who's going to be playing third base. It is interesting that he is playing third base because a lot of the talk is if we were to sign Bregman, which I was not happening. I didn't think that was going to happen. Like, let's be honest here, people. At that time, I don't know if you had much faith, but I sure as hell didn't have any faith that the Red Sox would do what it would take to get Alex Bregman. But you know what? I'm glad they semi-proved me wrong, because basically what it is, it's 3 one-year deals that Alex Bregman can decide to come back or not, regardless. It is interesting because when he did sign, it was, well, Bregman's going to be playing second because he can play wherever in the infield, but Devers is going to be playing third base. Then we had the whole fiasco of Rafael Devers being like, no, I'm a third baseman. I'm a third baseman. This is my position. I am not moving to DH. And not for nothing, he wasn't the best third baseman. Now, he's not a terrible third baseman, but he wasn't the best. The guy he was very limited in his range. And when you're playing the hot corner, you got to move. But luckily, he took his time. He took a deep breath. He went away for a lot longer than I think the Red Sox anticipated. But he came back, and now he's a company man. So I can't complain there, which is always a good thing. But I do think that the biggest surprise on this lineup is second baseman Christian Campbell. I think Christian Campbell, while he was the minor league player of the year last year and just rose right through the ranks like that, like he literally started the year in Double-A or Single-A and moved up and played an entire month in Triple-A. That was crazy. It's very rare to see a player have that just kind of fast-track development like he did. And I was excited. I am excited. I think this kid has the possibility to be a factor on this team. But I'm also very, trepidatious just in the fact that he's not going to come out batting 350 and maintaining, a 300 batting average for the entire season his first year. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and just, when it comes to hitting, is just below average. That's kind of my prediction for him, at least in the first month, maybe 2. I think that, he does have a very unorthodox swing, I think, as a lot of people have pointed out. But when you look at kind of like spring training as a metric, right? This was really the time to see, okay, who's the guy? Is it Campbell? Is he going to make the leap? Is it Meyer? Is Marcelo Meyer going to make the jump? Is Roman Anthony going to show why he should be on this 26-man lineup? Turns out it was Campbell. But when you look at what happened this spring training, in my opinion, I really felt like it should have been Marcelo Meyer. Why? Because Marcelo Meyer, versus Christian Campbell, they both played 20 games this season. You have Campbell on the left, Meyer on the right. Campbell got more at-bats. He had 48 at-bats to Meyer's 36. Meyer had a 333 batting average to Christian Campbell's 167. Now that's, if Campbell couldn't bat 200, if not 250 in spring training, that to me raises a few flags. But I'll get back to why, everything could level out in just a minute. But when you look at it even more, again, Meyer had 12 hits to Campbell's 8. Meyer had a much better on-base percentage at 455 to Campbell's 305. And then Meyer, again, much, much better slugging percentage at 528 to Campbell's 271. So yes, Campbell flew right up the ranks when it came to the minors and making his way and getting to doing going from Single-A to Triple-A and then winning minor league player of the year unanimously, I think it was. That's great. That's what, we want to see, because that means here's another guy in our pipeline who can be ready to make that leap to the big leagues. But again, you got to remember, AAA to the show is a very big jump. Going from single A to AAA, is about this. Going from AAA to the majors is about that. At least in my opinion. But it's still a massive leap. It's a massive leap from AAA to the majors, because the talent is just far, far superior when it comes to playing in the show. And so when I look at those stats, it's kind of this interesting dichotomy, because with Campbell, right, I'm worried. I'm worried because he did not have a great spring. He was, batting a .167. He did have a halfway decent on base percentage at .305, maybe below average, but not a killer, or basic or average. Excuse me, not below average, but average. But at the same time, I look at Meyer, and I'm as impressed as I am. I'm like, hey, look at that. 12 hits out of 36 at-bats, .333 batting average, 528 slugging percentage. That's awesome. But then you could come back to me and be like, whoa, Tim, you have to pump the brakes, because Marcelo Meyer was going against a lot of AA guys. He was going against a lot of AAA guys. And that's the issue. So you have to kind of sit there and be like, well, take it for what it's worth, right? I do believe that, yes, spring training tells you something. And with Meyer performing much, much better than Campbell, I would have given Meyer the nod over Christian Campbell. But that then makes me wonder, okay, so why did Campbell get the nod, right? Was it because of his fast track trajectory in the minors? Was it the fact that he's working, firsthand with this company, this nerd company called Driveline? Was it Cora's choice? Was it Breslow's choice? And then if it was Cora, well, what does that mean? Versus if it was Breslow, then I think I would argue we have more issues if it was Breslow. And then, and part of the reason why I wonder if it's Breslow is not just because of the Driveline nerds, but also because that could mean the service time issue that comes with Marcelo Meyer staying in the minors for a little bit longer. Now, some reports have it that Meyer, on top of his injury history, also struggles with the off-speed pitches. And if he struggles with off-speed pitches in the minor leagues, imagine how he would do when it comes to the major league off-speed pitches. But I want to get to this new segment because this all ties itself in together, right? This new segment that I have is called What Drives Me Up a Wall, because this is something that it just does. Like, there are certain instances where, again, things just, annoying things that just piss me off that, again, as I said multiple times on this show, it just drives me up a wall. The way these nerds act drives me up a wall. How the games are changing, and sometimes for the worse, drives me up a wall. All these different things. So that's the name of this new segment. The Drive Me Up a Wall segment is here. And this is what, again, drives me up a wall, right? So go looking at this whole Campbell situation. You have Jeff Passan and Alex Spear talking about multiple situations, right? You're going through, this Driveline baseball, okay? These Driveline nerds where, again, I never heard of them. I never thought anything of them. It was just that all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, they appeared, right? And just to give you a little taste of who these Driveline people are, here is one of the guys who is the hitting director for the Boston Red Sox, Jason Oshart, who is a former Driveline guy. Listen closely to what he says in his why Driveline is the best. Take a listen.
I think in a lot of ways we're way behind. And before we can even talk about movement quality and training, I think we need to agree on an outcome. And I think that a surprisingly high number of coaches and players can't even agree on what a good batted ball is, despite irrefutable evidence.
Despite irrefutable evidence, what a good batted ball is? I don't know. A hit? I think a hit's a good batted ball, right? Like the arrogance that it took for him to say that, like, oh, not everybody can agree on what a good batted ball is. Well, yeah, like you want to hit the ball hard. You want to make sure that it's on a line drive. And I don't know, a guy by the name of Ted Williams, who wrote this book, The Science of Hitting, says right here, the 3 cardinal rules for developing a smooth line drive swing. So if you're going to tell me that Ted Williams doesn't know what he's talking about because he's not talking about launch angle, he's talking about line drives, and you can't hit line drive. That's exactly what Jason Oshart, who is rumored to be the nerd that Jim Rice yelled at and told him to get the hell out of here. This moron has to go out and say that, no one can agree what a good batted ball is, even though there's definitive proof. What? Are you going to tell me that a home run is a good batted ball, just like the NBA nerds have to tell me that a 3-pointer is worth more than a 2-pointer? Like, is this kind of the situation that we're talking about? And so the reason why I want to bring it up is because Jason Oshart in Driveline Baseball, in this article written by Jeff Passan, Spring Training, how Red Sox built MLB's best prospect trio. This came out in February. All right. He notes that they were empowered. Jason Oshart and assistant farm director Chris Stasio, who were Driveline guys, were empowered by Red Sox management to implement their new systems in hopes of extracting the best version of later round picks like Christian Campbell. And if it worked, he would represent the proof of concept. So in other words, this is that right then and there, I think, is the reason why Christian Campbell made the opening day roster and not Marcelo Meyer. Now, again, do I know the ins and outs of what's going on in the Red Sox clubhouse? Do I know, can I look at, the swing and kind of break it down and, study the game? I mean, if I studied it long enough, yeah, I think I could be able to. But just in terms of this, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. And like I mentioned, Meyer had a better spring. So if Meyer had a better spring, why give Campbell the nod? Oh, I know why. Because the Red Sox management are trying to empower these nerds by saying, oh, look, see how fast Christian Campbell rose up the ranks in the minors? And now look, oh my gosh, he is already in the show. It only took him a year and a half to get there. Unbelievable. This doesn't happen. This is totally unnatural. And it's all because of Driveline Baseball, which to me is just a load of crap. Sure. Can they help the kid? Absolutely. What bothers me is that they're so focused on the analytical aspect. They're so focused on the launch angle, the pulling the ball. I mean, hell, even in this article, it talks about how they're so focused on pulling the baseball. Because, yeah, right here, it goes on to say, and again, this is all in the Jeff Passan article. Quote, the bigger challenge was adulterating Campbell's swing to hit the ball in the air. Williams, who wanted to be known as the greatest hitter who ever lived, long advocated for ball flight because he understood a hard hit ground ball is typically a single, while balls struck in the air produce the vast majority of extra base hits. And when it says Williams, it's talking about Ted Williams. And as I noted in his book, that he is trying to develop the line drive. That is his mantra. It's not about getting the ball on the ground. It's about hitting for line drives. And so automatically right there, if that is a Driveline phrase or if that was Jeff Passan, then they totally got that wrong. All right. That's just straight up facts number one. But it goes on to say, pulling the ball in the air is particularly important. The longer a bat takes to make contact, the more speed it generates. Meeting a ball in front, which typically allows a hitter to pull, maximizes the capacity for damage. Now, see, this is where, again, you're so focused on the numbers. You're so focused on, this rudimentary understanding of baseball, where this is, if you could shift, I wonder what they would be saying. Because if you could still shift and have the David Ortiz shift, everybody on the right-hand side and the third baseman is practically at second base on the shortstop side. He's all the way moved over. I wonder if they would still feel, actually, no, I don't wonder. I know these nerds would still feel the same way, that to them, it's all about pulling. It's all about hitting that home run that goes right over the shift. To them, that was their solution. Oh, okay. Just don't hit it the other way. Don't hit it to opposite field. No, because that's not a good hit. What is a good hit is the ball that has a 70-degree launch angle that goes off the bat at 115 miles an hour and just soars 380 feet into the upper deck. Please, can someone explain to me how trying to do it that way versus go opposite field is better? Because the athlete in me wants a sure bet. And hitting the ball up in the air, trying to do that launch angle business, is not necessarily a sure bet, because what it can do is the ball can hit off the top of the bat and just go straight right up in the air and then down. And it only traveled 10 feet, 30 feet. It's not leaving the ballpark. And then when you bring the wind factor into it, that's going to affect how the ball hangs in the air. Does it hang for a little bit longer? Otherwise, that ball would have been gone. Oh, well, see, look, you had a 45-degree launch angle, or, you had a 60-degree launch angle. The ball came off the bat at 110 miles an hour. Oh, but it was expected to be a home run at Fenway Park. The only issue was the wind came in, held the ball up for a little bit longer, so it didn't travel as far. It slowed it down, and that's why the right fielder caught it just short of the warning track. Do you understand why this nonsense drives me up a wall? Because they're so focused on the expected outcome. Hey, look, 60 degrees, 108 miles an hour off the bat. That's a home run any day of the week, twice on Sunday. Oh, but the wind held it up, and, well, it turned out to be an out, and the game ended. That's where, again, to me, as a guy who played baseball his entire life growing up, who played for a long time even afterwards, again, as a left-handed hitter myself, I was one of the few lefties. I would see the shift myself, and I would just knock it right down the third baseline. Again, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm a pro baseball player. it used to drive me bananas when I would watch David Ortiz sometimes. And the dude's trying to, he's still trying to pull the ball where the entire left side of the field is open to him. You can't just hang back for another half second. Aren't you a professional? And listen, I love David Ortiz. I'm not trying to criticize the man. It's just trying to prove a point, where the nerds, they're so focused. And I'm not referring to David Ortiz as a nerd, just FYI. Love you, David, if you ever watch the show. But, they're so focused on pulling the ball and getting the certain launch angle and getting the trajectory right and doing this and doing that, where, again, if you just sit there and take what is given to you, you can accomplish a lot. It can work. But when, like these nerds, they're so arrogant. And listen, you know what the funny part is? Like, I'll give Felger Mass a little credit here. Big Jim Murray on Felger Mass talking about how, when it came to the Jim Rice story, on the nerd freaked out that Jim Rice is telling, allegedly, Christian Campbell how to hit the ball on a line drive. And Jason Oshart, allegedly, was the one that Jim Rice basically stuffed in a locker. Or I kind of wish he stuffed in a locker. Would have been funny as hell. But he's so focused on the launch angle and this and that, rather than allowing Jim Rice to give his point of view, the man who studied under Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski. I talked about the list last week. It was so focused on that. That's why, where I give, Jim Murray credit, he's like, no, we could do a blend of both. And I kind of agree with that, except for the fact that, now it's come to a stage where you can't have, it will never work. The jocks and the nerds will never merge. They will never merge, because it's gone to a point where they are trying to rewrite baseball. That's exactly what it is. That's their whole goal, is rewriting how to play the entire sport. Again, when you look at all these things, like I said, expected. Remember the catch or almost catch that happened, and it was expected outcome, a 99% chance. It ends up becoming a hit, and he closed the gap so much that, it was still a hit. He closed the gap, right? And then reading the Jeff Passan article, you have batting average and weighted on base percentage. In other words, weighted on base percentage is a metric that measures productivity at the plate. What about on base percentage? Because to me, on base percentage tells me whether or not you're productive at the plate, because it combines walks and hits. Hello, McFly, why do we have to add all these extra numbers, all these extra stats? I have said it once and I will say it again. I guarantee you I could find a better baseball player based off batting average, on base percentage, and watching the game and watching them play versus the computer doing it for me. Well, hey, look, he batted, 215, or in Christian Campbell's case, he batted $167, but no. He is, so much better, blah, blah, and all this. And I'm not trying to sit here and knock Christian Campbell. I'm not saying the dude's a bad player. That's not my intention. My intention is just to point out the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of this decision came on the fact that Christian Campbell is a Driveline product. That he is he's the one that has been learned and taught under Driveline baseball. And that's where, it worries me, because these guys are just so crazy to the other side, to the nerd side. They've had enough of the athletes coming at them, or the jocks, stuffing them in lockers, where now they're doing it on the reverse. And just to prove my point, here's another clip of Jason Oshart from that same video. Take a listen.
It's going to become a situation where if you don't understand this stuff and you don't know the language and you don't know how to analyze this data or collect this data, you're simply just not going to be able to be a hitting coach.
So what? I have to know data. I have to know how to calculate, weighted on base percentage in order to be a successful hitting coach. I mean, this is kind of the same nonsense that, again, drives me up a wall, baby. It is just asinine for me to sit here and allow this to not be talked about, because, again, the fact that sports have been as infiltrated by these nerds, as to the level that it's gone to, baseball feels like a lost cause. Basketball is on its way to being a lost cause. Football, we're still kind of 50-50 with the whole fourth down conversions and all, and a few other things, and going for it rather than punting and playing that field position game. And hockey, well, I don't. Hockey is great. Hockey's great. It's untouched. You can't touch hockey with nerd stats. Like, let's be honest. But the one thing that I will never stop doing is I will never give in to the nerds. I will never give in to the analytics. I will always continue to point this nonsense out and keep telling you how it drives me up a wall, because it is total nonsense. We need to go back to the past. We need to understand our history before we can move forward, because I know all of these guys think that they are writing the new book on hitting, where guess what? The book was already written. You're just too stupid to either read the book, understand the book, or you're really going out of your way to change the book because you don't like it. And that, to me, is a massive problem. As somebody who loves the history and loves to understand where sports have come from and how they've developed and where they are now, you can never, ever forget where it comes from. And in terms of baseball, Ted Williams is the man that wrote the book on hitting. Literally. So it really is just an unbelievable thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited for the season. I'm excited to see what happens. I hope Christian Campbell does well. I do. All right. I really do. And I think that with how Marcelo Meyer played, doing what he did, going 333, 455 on base percentage, and a 528 slugging percentage, I truly believe that he is right there. He is going to be the next guy. And Trevor Story better watch out. He'd better watch out. And because if Trevor Story doesn't get off, and I don't mean a hot start like him batting 350, having 6 home runs in, the month of April. But, if things aren't working out and the Red Sox truly don't care about, service time, like my thought is, as part of the reason why Meyer is back down in the minors and not on and not up with the big club here. Don't be surprised if Meyer makes an appearance by the end of April, early May. And so the one other story that I came across on Mass Live that, again, as I like to say, drives me up a wall. Just it both. I got 2 Drive Me Up a Wall segments for the price of 1 episode. Hey, when you introduce a new segment, why not go all out, right? Have multiple Drive Me Up a Wall segments. So this is the other thing that just kind of, again, Sam Kennedy just being classic Sam Kennedy, right? The Red Sox, I guess, are going to debut new City Connect jerseys. And for those who don't know, it's the yellow and blue, the Marathon Monday jerseys that they sported. That's the City Connect jerseys. Well, during an appearance on the Fenway Rundown podcast, which is a Mass Live hosted podcast, Sam Kennedy was asked if he could provide any details surrounding the new jerseys. And while, of course, he wasn't going to say what the jerseys are, he did say, quote, "I can tell you that they will be controversial. And I think you're on the right track in terms of the color scheme that you mentioned. There might be a theme with a certain wall in left field." Kennedy, of course, Green Monster, duh, But then he goes on to say, quote, "I always have to remind people, like my dad and others, these uniforms are not for you. They are for players and for the next generation of fans." So in other words, the people who actually have the money to spend, you're not making jerseys for us. You're not referring to, you're going to piss us off, the older generations, and I would argue myself and my generation. Like, are you dumb? Like, honestly, he loves to go out, he loves to talk, and loves to spew how they're going to be better. They're going to spend the money. We really love this team. We're invested. We're fans just like you. Yet he comes out and says stupid stuff like this. Like, honestly, a nice, reset, back of the hand. Like he is a dumbass for saying stuff like this. And again, say what you want, again, but the fact that he has the gall to say that these uniforms are not for you, to the older generation. These are just the same people. Like, this is like Disney and what they did with that Snow White movie. Having that Rachel Zegler girl be Snow White. Like, hello, Snow White. And then her just basically want to rewrite the entire, story of Snow White. They at first did not want to have the 7 dwarfs, but then they CGI'd them for a company that's so like, oh, we want to be inclusive. Okay, we'll CGI dwarfs rather than go out and hire, dwarf actors. This is, I feel like, what Sam Kennedy is doing by saying, no, old man, these jerseys aren't for you. They're for the kids. They're for the younger generation because we want them to get just as excited as, you are. If anything, by doing that, if anything, by him coming out and saying that, only pisses me off more and only makes me want them to fail that much more. And that's the hardest part, I think, about being a Red Sox fan right now, is that there is an ownership group that is just so dead set on telling diehard Red Sox fans to go F themselves. And they want to focus more on the pink hats, focus more on, the younger generation, the kids who aren't into baseball. And I get that, yeah, you need to market to everybody. But to sit there and openly state that, no. These jerseys, they're not for you, Dad. They're for the people who can't afford to buy their own tickets, who can't afford to, even drink a beer, let alone, like I said, buy their own ticket or buy a friggin' hot dog. Like, that is just so obnoxious. And what's the word I'm looking for? So degrading and demeaning. just to treat your fans like that. Because at the end of the day, if there's a group of fans that you really want to just not hone in on, like do 100% marketing to them, but you need to make sure that the diehard fans are satisfied with what you're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. I was one of these people that are looking at the Marathon jerseys and are like, I don't know. Like it's kind of a weird look, that like it works for the Marathon, but I'm not sure if it works for the Red Sox. And ironically enough, they were undefeated for a year and a half in those jerseys. It was wild. But needless to say, it's the arrogance in comments like that where I just sit there and I go, what are we doing? Can we just please get an off season where I don't have to sit here and constantly bash the Red Sox because they just act so dumb. They act so dumb, and they just, again, I will say it for the 100th time, drive me up a wall because you just don't understand the diehard fan. The diehard fan, I think, has more sway and more power than the casual pink hat. I remember when Jacoby Ellsbury, I remember all the girls when he was playing as the Red Sox back in 07 and 08, all the girls across Boston loved Jacoby Ellsbury. But could 3/4 of them tell you what position he played? No. Even some of the bandwagon fans, guys, had no idea what position he played. They just knew the name because they saw it on ESPN or they saw it on TV somehow. Like it's the casual fan like that, okay, yeah, you might want to throw, a couple bucks at, throw a few bones to by advertising to them. But when all is said and done, it's the diehard fans that are going to want to go to 162 games and cheer on this team, go to Fenway, spend their hard-earned money on the most expensive ticket, most expensive beer, most expensive food prices, and they just brought back Heinz ketchup, even though they tried to fake Heinz ketchup for a couple of years because they were being too cheap. Let's not forget about this, people. It really makes it hard, honestly, to be a diehard Red Sox fan when all of these things are going on. But at the end of the day, it's opening day tomorrow. I'm going to be watching the Red Sox game at 4 o'clock, right on the dot, watching them play the Rangers, which I'm very excited about. So, moving on, going from the Red Sox, and now we have gone from red, we're going to go to green. We're going to bleed green right now with some Boston Celtic commentary where bleeding green could literally be a thing because Jason Tatum got hurt. Jason Tatum got hurt the other night, again, playing against the Kings. When Sabonis got too close to his landing spot, Tatum rolled his ankle, and the grimace on Jason Tatum's face was the season's over. He tore something. He high ankle sprain. It was going to be, at what point in the playoffs is Tatum going to come back for? That was my question. And so that's what had me worried. And he was doubtful for today's game, doubtful. And then all of a sudden around 3 o'clock, he was upgraded to questionable. And I'm just sitting there going, what do you mean he's questionable? And so I guess that with Jason Tatum, he loves to go and play in front of away audiences because he knows that they are spending their hard-earned money. The fans of the Phoenix Suns, because that's who we're playing tonight, the fans of the Suns are spending their hard-earned money to see him. And I got to tell you, all the more reason why this man should be the face of the NBA, because he is not acting. He is doing the complete opposite of what LeBron James has done for a decade, if not a decade plus. LeBron James couldn't care less about the casual fan. He couldn't care less. He's like, oh, I got to play the Washington Wizards tonight. Yeah, no, ooh, yeah, hey, my neck, man, my neck is kind of bugging me. I'm just gonna sit out. I'm gonna rest tonight. Whereas Tatum, he gets it. He's like, no. I want to play. I want all these fans who spent their hard-earned money to see me. I'm gonna give them a show tonight. Now, as a Celtics fan, I couldn't care less about the fans in Phoenix. I couldn't care less about the other 29 fans, okay? And whether or not Tatum shows out for them. I want him to be healthy so that we make a playoff run and win a back-to-back NBA championship. Screw the damn fans in Phoenix. I want that championship back. Like, that's how I'm looking at this. So, I don't know. My gut is telling me that they're still going to sit him out. I think it was X-rays came back negative. So that's obviously a good sign. Good, he walked off under his own power. He wasn't in a boot the other night. He wasn't in crutches. So I think we can all take a breather on that a little bit. But at the end of the day, I want this man out for the next 3, maybe 4 games, because there are 10 games left in the season. The Celtics have basically not completely, but basically locked up the number 2 seed here in the Eastern Conference. As you can see, the Celtics are on a 9-10, 6-game win streak. We're 5 games behind Cleveland. And even though, Cleveland's gone 6-4 in their last 10, I don't think the number 1 seed is really in sight, which is why I'm just kind of like, you know what? Screw it. Let Tatum sit. Let him sit for the last couple, for the next 3 or 4 games. And then he can play out, kind of get his legs underneath him again, get ready for the playoffs. We're the number 2 seed. It's basically a wrap. I mean, look at that. We're 7.5 games in front of the Knicks with 10 games to go. I mean, the Knicks are not going to catch us. Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson are not going to catch us. So Tatum needs to sit. The number 2 seed is locked up. We're good there. I'm glad that he's upgraded to questionable, because he did go shoot around today. He was testing out that ankle, which means, again, there's nothing wrong. Thank God. But let's take it easy there, Killer. Okay? Let's pump the brakes. And then the other big story that came out is the Celtics have a new owner, Bill Chisholm, William Chisholm, whatever his name is. Like, he is the new Celtics owner. It was kind of weird how everything went down, because when the reports came out, all of a sudden it was just, bam, he's the guy. It's done. It kind of caught, I think, all of us off guard last week, because, there were discussions. I think they were going to do their meeting, but it wasn't like it was being, the front running, the story, the big story that was coming out for the Celtics was, hey, the Celtics, they're about to be sold. No. It was, bam, here's the new guy. $6.1 billion is what Bill and his group of investors are going to be paying for the Celtics. Now, the interesting thing about it is, how is this team going to be affected moving forward? Because here's a guy who, again, made his money as I forget, but he made his money as a investor, out west. He was part of the tech capital, I think, Silicon Valley. I think he was one of those guys. And, but he's a Georgetown, Mass native. He right around, Danvers, and, being from Georgetown, big Celtics fan, he loves the team. He was at the Sacramento game with his wife the other night and just taking it all in. But just because he's a fan, again, it's nice and all, but the $1 million question is the man going to spend his money? So far we've had two owners in John Henry who come out firing, with paying for Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, Josh Beckett, Mike Lowell, Pablo Sandoval, Kyle Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez, doing all these things, but now is playing I'm not paying anymore. I'm done. I'm not. We're not spending anywhere near the luxury tax, all that crap. Then we got Robert Kraft, who was able to hide behind the fact that no. It's not me that doesn't want to spend money. It's Bill Belichick that doesn't want to spend money. And so it was Bill, while we were yelling at all the other owners in town. It was Bill's fault for the Patriots. Come to find out, no, Robert Kraft was more than happy to not spend money like other teams in the league. So my question is, again, how is this going to affect the team going forward? Right now, the team is screwed in terms of being in the second apron and the taxation that comes out of there, which I can't even begin to describe because the NBA is so just complicated, convoluted with all their rules in terms of the money, the tax, the apron, the spending. It's like, can we just make things concise and simple and easy, But it's the NBA. What do you expect? Though they're going to spend into the second apron. Will he, though? After spending $6.1 billion, billion with a B. I don't know. Because it's not just him. He's not the one with deep pockets. He has to have other investors. And with those other investors, how fast are they going to look for a return on investment? That's kind of a big, important thing. And that's one of the major problems with having groups as owners. It's not just a single guy. It's a group of people because, yes, you have the head of the whole group, which sounds like it very well could be Bill, but they could all be calling him up being like, hey, I only got a 2% return on investment. I thought we were going to get a 15% return on investment, so you need to cut the fat. You need to stop spending, blah, blah, blah. And if he gets enough of those calls, he might fall, he might fall because, or cave to them because of the fact that, they could pull their money out and he couldn't afford the team anymore, something to that regard. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And then the next question is, well, who's going to be the first to go? And when? Obviously, they can't make any moves between now and the end of the NBA season. But with Bill coming in, owning this team right away, and spending $6.1 billion, which, again, it's not him spending that money. He's going to be paying X, and another group of investors is going to be paying Y. So that's where that's going to go, come into play. But they're going to need the money to be able to afford the players and afford the taxation that goes back into the league pool. So I'm wondering, well, if it were up to me, I don't know. I would seriously consider, I think a lot of names that have been floating around, which I think for rightfully so, are Sam Hauser, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis. I got nothing against those guys. I enjoy having them. I love the fact that they're Celtics. I really hope that they bring home a second championship because, we need a second championship with this iteration of players. I think it's only fitting. Kind of like the Garnett, Pierce, and Allen. They, for lack of a better word, deserved a second championship. I have no problem saying they deserved a second championship. Now, obviously, they didn't get it, due to factors of injuries and, having a 10-point lead in Game 7 of the NBA Finals only to just fall short. But again, there were those circumstances. They couldn't get it done. And that's where it's like, I feel like a lot of Celtics fans know that, remember that, and are looking at the Jays being like, yeah, it's nice you got one, but we need another, and as arrogant as that sounds, as crazy as that sounds, I mean, hell, one of my close friends who is a Celtics season ticket holder, I think he was happy for maybe 5 seconds before he was like, no, I'm not gonna be satisfied till we get another championship. It's like, dude, can you just enjoy this, please? Like, it's like, come on, we just won. Relax, okay? But no, in all seriousness, though, yeah, it's like, hey, I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, I think Drew Holiday, they need that second championship. I think it would, not only just solidify them even more, but I think it would make the decision really interesting come the offseason if they get a second one. Do we really want to break this group up, or can we pay for the next, 2-3 years into the apron? And then after those 2-3 years, then we'll break everything down and keep the guys that we need to keep and get rid of the guys that we want to get rid of. All I ask is that you don't get rid of Derek White. That's my guy. And don't get me wrong, this isn't meaning that I love Tatum, I love Brown, I love this team. But Derek White, to me, is the most underrated Celtic on this team. He's the guy that just flies right under the radar, does his job, does better than I think what a lot of us even realize. But Derek White is kind of that silent assassin who just knows where to be, is in there the right moments, hits the right shots. That's why you cannot get rid of Derek White. Not to mention he's Jason Tatum's best friend. But the interesting story that, again, was floated out there by Nick Wright. And this kind of all ties in because new owner who wants to leave his mark on the Celtics, and probably wants to do it pretty fast. Nick Wright, who I think you know exactly where I stand when it comes to Nick Wright and how just Looney Tune that man is when it comes to some of his takes, threw this out there. And I'm not saying that it's true or, it's unverified, that he is loony, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when saying this, but it definitely got me to think. And take a listen to what Nick Wright had to say on his show, I think yesterday, when it came to the Boston Celtics.
Two totally unrelated people, both of whom have reputations for knowing things that other people don't know, have said to me, watch out for Durant in Boston. It doesn't make, I don't know even the pieces that it would work, and it feels a lot like what Durant got killed for with Golden State before, so it doesn't make sense.
Be awesome.
Kevin Durant in a Celtic uniform, finally. And I don't mean that in a good way. I don't want Durant. I don't. He is under contract this year and next year. So I don't know if he was implying that the Celtics, after the season ends, are going to talk to Phoenix and say, hey, what's the price tag for Kevin Durant? And then pay it. Because I don't want this to be another John Y. Brown, Bob McAdoo situation. I don't. And for those who don't know, just watch episode 2 of the Celtics City on HBO Max. I've been loving it so far. I've had some interesting thoughts about it, but overall, I think it's very well done so far, and excited about it. But John Y. Brown bought the Celtics. Red hated it, as you could tell just watching the video. And then, without Red even knowing, acquires Bob McAdoo from the Knicks, someone that didn't want to be in Boston, and Red Auerbach didn't even want on the team. He spent 3 first-round picks and I think another player to get Bob McAdoo, who was only here for a year, and then he was long gone. So I'm just now sitting here thinking, like, is this the mark that, Bill Chisholm wants to leave on the Celtics? Is he goes and gets Kevin Durant? He gets his shiny new toy, and then again, what's that going to cost? Is he going to trade for him? Is he going to, give up Porzingis, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and a first-round pick, 2 years for the next 2 years in order to get Kevin Durant just because of what? He wants a aging superstar who, in my opinion, is flat out done and wildly overrated. Like, I don't know. I really hope that report is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because I don't want Durant anywhere near Celtic green. 10 years ago, I wanted him in Celtic green. Now, I'm good. I don't need Durant in Boston anymore. All right? Durant's a hell of a player, a hell of a talent. But he is way on the wrong side of 30, and his game is done. He's done. I mean, he can still do his thing to some degree, but I don't want him here. I really don't. So it's really interesting to see kind of that comment come out of there. And frequent commenter, not Doug, just throwing out there, Durant can stay out west. I agree. I have no desire to have Kevin Durant in Boston in Celtic green anymore. Because to me, that's just absolutely foolish to make a deal to bring Durant here. At least when Bob McAdoo came here, he was still in his prime to some degree. But now with this, let's not have history repeat itself, please. Bill, don't do a damn thing. The only thing that you should be doing is wondering how to tear down City Hall and that ugly ass building, and a brand new stadium right there. Right there, because right across from the Sam Adams brewery, in downtown Boston there. Like that to me is just, it's one of the ugliest buildings of all time. And not for nothing, a stadium would, I think could fit. I think a stadium could fit there. You tear down that hellhole. Like, yeah, I'm good with that. And now, so getting out of the city, going, to Foxborough, Massachusetts, talk some Patriots real quick, because Stefon Diggs, Patriots made a splash. Stefon Diggs, 3 years, $69 million, 26 of it guaranteed. Very excited about that. I posed the question, is it good, bad, or indifferent? Are you indifferent to it? To me, I think it's a very good signing. Yes, he is coming off an ACL injury. He is 31 years old. He will be 32. And, expectations is he won't be ready for the start of the season. I would be, I think, surprised if he came back week 2. I think what's going to happen is he's not going to, start playing real games, I think, until the beginning of October, which, again, I'm still like, hey, you know what? I'm all for it, regardless of, of him playing the first 4 weeks or not. Let the man heal up, feel good, feel comfortable, and then he can come back in. Because I think the thing with having Stefon Diggs here is that it gives some sort of normalcy, I think, to this wide receiver room. I mean, guys like Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Jalen Poole, Javon Baker, they're all young guys who really don't know what it takes to succeed in this league. Stefon Diggs does. And I have been a big fan of his since Minnesota. You know, he was a hell of a receiver out in Minnesota, making the Minnesota Miracle catch against the Saints and then going to Buffalo and then just absolutely crushing it out in Buffalo, especially under Brian Daboll. But I think it's going to be a good thing. Now, my big question, though, is does this mean that the Patriots are done? Because if they're done, I have a massive problem with that because they still need to go out and do a bunch of things. They still need to figure out how to get a starting left tackle. They need to figure out how to get a real number one receiver. And then this doesn't mean, I truly believe Diggs is can be a number one receiver, but I think he's a better two. Matt Collins could be the three. It's just, where is that guy? Because Stefon Diggs, keep him on the boundary. He's very good there. And he can do a lot more. He can go across the middle, but I don't want to be risking that much. But when it comes to the offseason, the Patriots have a lot of holes to fill. And I am a little worried that this is now going to lead them towards a path of, we're going to be taking Will Campbell at 4. And I'll get to Will Campbell and some draft talk in a little bit. But I still want them to go out and pursue trade possibilities and figure out if they can go and get a stud left tackle, which I doubt. I mean, come on now. If they're going to get a stud left tackle, that means the people who are trading that left tackle know something is up with that and don't like him. Otherwise, no one's giving up their left tackles. No, who are worth a damn, no one's giving up their left tackle. So I think with that, they still have to figure out, again, what else is going to do. Yes, they helped out with their defense a lot. But I'm wondering, with this Diggs signing, what else is going to transpire? And the funny thing about this Diggs signing is that Adam Schefter, who was the one who tweeted this out, the first paragraph of the tweet is, Patriots and wide receiver Stefon Diggs coming off an ACL surgery, suffered in week 8 versus the Colts, is on track to return for week 1, which, hey, great. That's awesome. I'm glad he can possibility come back week 1. I just don't want him to re-injure his knee again. But then he has a second paragraph to that tweet, which reads, it was another reason the Patriots felt comfortable giving Diggs the 3-year, $69 million deal that GM Elliott Wolf and Diggs' agent, blah, 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 of the Sports Entertainment Group negotiated. Can you show me another time where Adam Schefter really made it a big deal of who negotiated with who? Because reading that Elliott Wolf felt comfortable giving Diggs this deal after negotiating with his agent screams to me that Elliott Wolf was not the one in charge, that this was not an Elliott Wolf signing, that sure, he might have been the guy to talk some numbers, but at the end of the day, this was all about Mike Vrabel and Robert Kraft. Because I think part of it, too, is that Robert Kraft is making a move to shut us up, to shut the fans up. I do. I do think that in some small way, that signing Stefon Diggs was a way to say, see, look, I actually spend money. All right, can we stop talking about me being cheap? I truly believe that was part of the deal. Why? Because it just so happened that Tom E. Curran just the other day or late last week wrote an article saying that, are the Patriots cheap? Evidence suggests not. But if he's going to write that article with that headline, and I'm not sure that he was the one that chose the headline, but even still, it just goes to show that word around town is that Robert Kraft, you kind of cheat, which is something I've been saying for quite some time. So I'm happy that they signed him. I don't care that if it was a spiteful signing, if that was the case, because if it's a spiteful signing, then great. We got the job done, right? We got the guy. I thought Diggs was long gone after he walked out the building, but no, he's back. And the fact that Adam Schefter had to make note that it was Elliott Wolf who negotiated with this just goes to show that either Elliott Wolf's got a wicked small ego and just is craving all that attention, or that, yes, it was Robert Kraft and Mike Vrabel. Vrabel wanted this guy. Robert Kraft wanted to shut the fans up and, did it out of spite, which I'm like, good. You ponied up some money to get a real player. The irony is you had the irony is you had that tweet or story come out last week or the week prior talking about, oh, well, we can't sign or get a number one receiver who's a total diva because we don't want that to affect Drake May. And now you bring in Stefon Diggs, who kind of forced his way out of Buffalo, had some big blow-ups there, and forced his way out of Minnesota too. Yeah, because he's a friggin' peach when it comes to that stuff. That's why I think partially is the reason that story came out. I think that's why Robert Kraft ended up signing this guy because, yeah, he caved. He caved to us. That's what happens. And I'm good. You needed a guy like this. Yes, he's coming off an ACL injury, but we all know ACL injuries are now totally different injuries than they were back just even 20 years ago. So I think this is going to be a interesting segment. And I do just want to throw this out there real quick. I heard on 98.5's Beetle and Zoe today, somebody mentioned the fact that Diggs is dating Cardi B. So, Cardi B is going to be coming to Gillette Stadium. And, how awesome is that? Cardi B is so great, man. How quickly we forget. This woman is not a good person. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant right now. A little bit of soapbox about Cardi B because it just pisses me off that, number one, I don't give a damn who the hell Stefon Diggs is dating. Married or dating, whatever. As long as he comes up in a Patriots uniform and plays the way he's played before, good. That's all I care about. Just perform on the field. Do your own thing. I don't care. But to sit there and be like, see, we could rival Taylor Swift now because Cardi B is going to be coming to Foxborough. Cardi B is not a good person, people. It pisses me off that people were on the show excited that, oh my God, here's a celebrity. She's not a good person. She openly admitted to drugging men and then robbing from them. And yet she's a multi-millionaire who, quite honestly, sucks as a rapper. She stole Nicki Minaj's gig or attitude or style. That's it. She stole Nicki Minaj's style. But at the end of the day, I don't like her rapping anyway. And plus, her song WAP, which I will refuse to listen to and refuse to say out loud, how the hell is that number one? But we're so offended by Baby It's Cold Outside. And there's a comedian out there who did a great bit on that. I forget his name, but shout out to him because it's so true. Here's an innocent song, Baby It's Cold Outside, but we're singing praises for the song WAP. Oh my God, how far society has fallen. You people are freaking crazy if you're a big fan of Cardi B and so excited that Stefon Diggs signed here and are excited that Cardi B could be showing up to Gillette Stadium. Like, get out of here with that nonsense. Like, and that's my rant for the day. But I mean, just seeing and hearing that again, third time today, drove me up a wall, baby. Unbelievable. It's just like the little things like that just are so dumb. All right. So, that's right. I did talk about Will Campbell. So Will Campbell had his pro day today. And don't get me wrong, I am a little afraid that the Patriots will draft Will Campbell because at the combine, he did come in and measure with 32 and 5/8 for his arm length, 32 inches and 5/8. And that's on the smaller side. And to be a left tackle in this league, you're going to have some long arms, as well as be a tall man. I mean, Will Campbell stands at 6'6". He's a big boy, and he's played in arguably the best conference in college football in the SEC, playing for LSU, going against some of the top competition, especially against Georgia. But, at his pro day today, his arms measured 33 inches, which is much better than 32 and 5/8. Not a whole hell of a lot better, but enough the same. Enough where it's like, okay, maybe it's a little more digestible that he could be the 4th overall pick. He's no Joe Alt, but he, maybe it might be a little bit better for him to be the 4th overall pick at 33-inch arms. But now that Russell Wilson signed with the Giants, does that mean the Giants are not going to take Shedeur Sanders? And if they don't take Shedeur Sanders, does that mean they're taking Travis Hunter? And is Travis Hunter the guy that we're all thinking that he is? If they don't take Travis Hunter, do they take Will Campbell? Do they take Ted McMillan? Who are we left with? I think that's $1 million question. Who are the Patriots going to be left with at the 4th overall draft pick? By the way, thank you to winning in Week 18 against Buffalo, but it's we're going to do a little bit more draft talk as the draft approaches, which will be at the end of next month. But I think for right now, it doesn't look good. I'm kind of worried that teams are actually looking at the quarterbacks in this league and they're like, in this draft, and they're like, we'll throw another year. We'll delay this quarterback draft until 2026. And so if they do that, that means a lot of good players are going to be going top 3. A lot of the best players will be going top 3. And, rumors are floating around that Ashton Gentry might be drafted at 4. And I would hate that because I don't want to waste a pick on a running back. That high, you don't waste a pick on a running back. It just, unless he is literally Derrick Henry, that's the only guy I would draft that high. I would have even drafted Zeke top 5. I would. But I don't know. Will Campbell having his pro day today, measuring at 33 inches. Little intriguing to see kind of why that is, how his arms somehow grew in the span of a month and a half. So we got one team that is finished, almost last in the entire league, to another team that, very could finish last in the entire league. The pace they're on. You had the Boston Bruins play the LA Kings the other night, and I couldn't care less that they lost 7-2. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't watch a second of that game, not because that it started at 10 o'clock and was out west. No, I didn't watch a second of that game because it's ridiculous, what this team has just transpired into, just how they just fell apart. You had that 2-game burst, that jolt after the trade deadline, and then they don't lose. They just lose in horrendous fashion. That's what they do. And so part of that horrendous fashion is the fact that Jeremy Swayman decided to fight, or wanted to fight, Darcy Kemper for the Kings. And of course, the refs broke it up. They had to get in their way because the last thing that they want is a goalie fight, to the chagrin of every single fan at the Staples Center or whatever it's called now. But everybody wanted to see that fight because how often do we see goalie fights anymore in the NHL? Like, not much. So that whole thing transpired. Jeremy Swayman, Darcy Kemper didn't even get a glove on or a hand on one another because the refs got in the way. They moved them apart. And then all of a sudden, after the game, you had Nikita Zadorov come out and asked what were his thoughts on Jeremy Swayman trying to stick up for his team and fight Darcy Kemper. If you haven't heard this, really pay attention because it's a doozy.
You guys appreciate that Jeremy stuck up for who said he did that?
Is that what it is?
Look like it.
Okay. I don't know. No comment.
He was asked, he was asked if what he thought about Swayman sticking up for his team, and he's like, that's what it was? Oh, well, no comment. Like, wow. I think that right there. And then, of course, he came out today. He took it back. He was just like, like, oh, my God. Like, no, that's not what I meant. I love Swayman. He's a great guy. This, that, and the other. Dude, you can't come back from that, man. That is speaking what is on your heart. And right then and there, I think we all know it might not have been Brad Marchand who was an issue. It might not have been Brad Marchand. Marchand might have been slightly justified in how he was treating Jeremy Swayman and all of that stuff. Like, that right there just goes to show, I mean, what is Swayman's, end goal? What? That he can, he's sticking up for his team, that he wants to defend the team. If you want to defend the team, dude, stop the friggin' shots from going in. You lost 7-2. Like, that's what is so mind-blowing to me. Jeremy Swayman is literally the one of the worst goalies in the league. And there are 32 teams in the NHL now. So that means there are 32 starting goaltenders. They all have backups and they all play to some degree. So I think the last time there's like 50, I think out of 53 goaltenders or 52 goaltenders, Jeremy Swayman is 45th in goals allowed or somewhere along those lines. Like, he is low 40s. He is almost the worst goaltender who got paid $8.25 million per year. Like, they suck. The Bruins suck. And yeah, I wanted to see Swayman fight. Hell, I want to see Darcy Kemper kick Swayman's ass. That's what I wanted to see. And speaking of fighting, Carving It Up podcast with Bryson Carver, who is on the Grid Network. If you haven't subscribed to the Grid Network. Also, go check out his show. Does a great football show. He talks about all sports, especially football and basketball. But he comes in, commenting, ain't even a hockey fan, but here's my take. Let him fight. Absolutely. That's the whole point. I mean, that's what they used to do. They used to let guys fight all the damn time. But now I think, again, the NHL is as great as the NHL is, and, as great as it is for the players to police themselves. Like, literally, hockey is the only sport where hockey players police themselves. And I think that's what makes the sport great. You can't police yourself in football. You can't police, in basketball or baseball. They kind of try to in baseball because of the all unwritten rules, which I think still apply and should still apply. But when it comes to hockey, I think part of the reason why they're okay with it is because they're not on a flat surface. They're on blades trying to punch one another. So yeah, they get all this force generated, but it's still not enough force where as you can, like on a basketball court, and just start socking guys left and right. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's kind of why it's great that they still allow them to fight, even though, yes, unfortunately, Bryson, they're taking fighting out of the game, which sucks because it's the only sport where the guys are able to police each other. But I think just going off saying what Zadorov said, I think that came from the heart. I really do. I think that came from the heart, and it was just kind of like, that was him trying to defend us. Yeah, real nice, good for him. I mean, it's not his job. Basically, I think he was trying to say it's not my job or not his job to fight the other goaltender. It's his job to stop the freaking puck from going in the back of the net. And now the Bruins are on a 6-game losing streak and have fairly decent odds to get the first or second overall pick. Now, obviously, they're slated for the 8th or 9th overall pick, obviously, which is most likely. But at this rate, like I said last week, I want them to tank. I'm done. And this does, and I don't mean that in the sense that I hate the Bruins. I just think that this team isn't going anywhere. I think this team isn't going anywhere. Give the kids a shot to play. It is over. It is a wrap on the season. And I'm glad they sold at the deadline, which they 100% should have. But it is really kind of a sad state of affairs to see the Bruins all of a sudden make a couple of signings in the offseason where it's like, this is still a playoff roster as it's currently constituted. And then now they're actually in the hunt to get the best odds for the number 1 overall pick. That is wild. Absolutely wild. Luckily for the Bruins, I think that because it's Boston, because it's a hockey town, because it's an original 6 team, that just because we're on a really bad spiral, that hockey players understand the history and they still love the idea of playing in Boston. So we're not out of the realm of, not being able to get guys because we suck. I think we're out of the realm of getting guys because, well, we're cheap and, we have to deal with guys like Swayman who are just head cases. Well, not for nothing. Goalies in general are head cases. But, Swayman's just a man who he's in a whole different stratosphere sometimes with the way he talks, And listen, I think he overall is a good goaltender. And I'm not trying to bash him as a person. Like, that's not my intention of saying that he's in a different stratosphere. It's just that when he's calling to reset the market and then gets $8.25 million to then follow up with a season like this, like, to me, that is, just atrocious. Stupid business on the Bruins side of things. And also, really, like, Swayman, like, you're better than this. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was the fact that he wasn't fully prepared for the season to start, but it's just, it really, like, this entire team, it's been rough. It's really been a rough season, and I'm glad the season is coming to a fast end because it needs to end. Unfortunately, I love the Bruins. I hope they figure it out and they get a good quality draft pick, get a good quality player who can hopefully help us out next season. But hey, it's a wait and see game. It's a wait and see game at this point. So thank you so much for sticking around, to hear me rant about, the Red Sox, cheer on the Celtics, cheer on the Pats, and kind of rant on the Bruins. So, but I am excited. It is opening day tomorrow. I hope you guys are going to be tuning in, watching the Red Sox game, and you know I will. So it's going to be a fun time. So once again, thank you all so much for sticking around with me. This is the Boston Sports Summit presented by the Grid Network. If you haven't, please like, share, subscribe. Please follow me all across social media. I'm on Instagram at Boston Sports Summit, on X at Boss Sports Summit. You can also find some clips on YouTube at Boston Sports Summit. But most importantly, we are in a Grid exclusive show. We are on the Grid Network. If you haven't liked, shared, subscribed for the Grid Network, I suggest you do it. A whole host of great shows. We even got some shows coming in the pipeline. As you saw, Bryson of Carving It Up Live, he is a great show. He has got a great show, great host. We got the Bi-Coastal Baseball Show. We got a couple Dallas Cowboys shows. We got, the All Even podcast hosted by the co-founder, Barry Grant Jr. So, guys, please give them a follow. Start watching some of their content. They got great shows. And, don't forget, Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnard. We come to you live every Wednesday at 7:05. So thank you guys so much for staying tuned. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Thank you, guys.